Okay, so thank you all for coming. Can you all hear me okay? Yes? Yes, over there and no over there. Louder. This is a good start. Well, thank you all for coming. I'm really, really excited to share with you this project that we've been working on. Even louder. Is that good now? Okay. So I'm very, very excited to share with you a project we've been working on, which is called Wildlife Rehabilitation MD, or WORMD for short, because we get a little bit tired of saying all the words. And I'll quickly diverge and say that Rachel Avila designed the logo, so if you think it's cute, you can talk to her. So, we've gathered here this morning to talk about, well, very quickly, me. Talk about me. As Shannon said, I've been doing rehab for about 10 years, so I'm not versed as much as many of you, but I've seen some things. I do a lot of websites and databases professionally as my work, and the important things, raccoons and coyotes are my favorite. Yes? All right. And I don't like it when people kill rattlesnakes. Okay, so the most exciting thing that we can talk about this morning, of course, is record keeping and paperwork, right? Yeah. So record keeping is not exactly the most, prime real estate or the most exciting thing within much of anything, but especially wildlife rehab. What we want to be doing, of course, is spending our time working with the animals and taking care of them and getting them back out into the wild. But we have to do our record keeping, more than just legal reasons, but we need to do the record keeping so that we can keep on top of what's, the history of those animals and what's really going on with them. What we shouldn't be doing, though, is spending a lot of time, chasing paper records down or trying really hard to find some animal or some record, or just wasting a lot of time messing with the records. As far as the records go, we should really only be reaping the benefits of what they can give to us. So let's improve the system, right? Easy enough. What we need to do is keep it as simple as possible. Record keeping really shouldn't be that complicated, and it very easily can get out of control. Another thing that I really personally would like to do is improve the professional stature of wildlife rehab. There are certain groups of people out there who frown upon us, and they shouldn't, because we do really knowable work and we work really hard at it. But if we can increase the professional stature of what we're doing, then we can get some more respect. So I've been doing some homework over the past few years. Basically, off and on for the past 5 years. Yeah, it's a good picture, by the way. For the past 5 years, I've been really trying to pay attention to the gripes of people with their records and how annoying this problem is with the record keeping, or something that they just wish they could change or improve upon. And really, actually, over the past 2 years, we've been really actively working on, investigating all different ways that people maintain their records and how they keep them organized, and what things they like and what things they don't like, and basically trying to aggregate all those best practices together and keep a list of all the things that need to be improved upon. So basically, for the most part, there are 3 different ways of keeping records. The first, of course, are paper records, and we're all familiar with that. And all these ways, including paper records, they have pros and cons. There are good things to them. Like, the pros to paper records is when you have that piece of paper right in front of you, it's super easy just to write down your thoughts or your notes or whatever's going on, and then move on. You don't have to spend a second or whatever it is to go to the computer and type it in. Now, that second isn't really that long, but a paper record is right there in front of you right at that moment. And of course, the other benefit is that paper record can stay with the patient. If you keep your records in a folder and they follow the patient around, then the record's right there. But the cons to paper records are very obvious, and I'm sure every single person in this room has experienced that, where is that paper record? And, who knows, you may never even find it again. The other con, of course, is that every paper record is an individual. You can't search across all the records and aggregate, the data and find, trends within that data. And then, the ultimate outcome is that thousands of records eventually become completely unmanageable. So the other record-keeping system Is that me making that noise? But I'm not breathing.
No, it's not. I'm touching it.
I don't know. So computerized records. There are lots of different computerized record keeping systems that I've seen. Some as simple as just keeping an Excel spreadsheet. Others as, as complicated as an Access database or FileMaker Pro database. And these systems are an improvement. They make it much easier to search across the data and get to a record or a group of records easily. And hopefully, you can create your year-end report much quicker and more easily than you would, of course, having to write it by hand. But there are still some cons in that. The first con that I'm sure we all see often, and I see quite often, is if you transfer an animal to another rehab center, and they print out their record and hand it to you, you look at it and you have to spend like 5 minutes looking at it, going, "What the heck is this?" I'm trying to figure out where your parts are in all this stuff. So there's not a lot of continuity between the record-keeping systems and how, well, for example, the dispositions. That there are standard dispositions that we're supposed to identify with, but some of us use other disposition names that, if you transfer an animal, you may not know what that disposition is. And of course, this also requires an IT savvy person, somebody who can maintain that database for you and recreate it again next year or what have you. So the third option, there are some existing third-party databases that have been developed for wildlife rehabbers. And using these is a huge step up. It's a huge improvement. They create much better continuity between centers. So all the centers in your area are using a particular database. It's very translatable what you're recording if you were to hand it to the next rehabber. Hopefully, with some of these databases, the maintenance of them is taken care of. But going right into the cons, there are some of these databases where they hand them to you, you have to install it onto your servers and maintain it on your own. And unless you have an IT type staff or somebody who can really stay on top of that, that can become a big problem as well. And in my research of these databases, well, one in particular I think is very expensive, and another one I don't think is particularly user-friendly. No naming names. So all of these databases, all these ways to keep records have their pros and cons. So what should we really be doing? Or what do I propose? So it's very easy, right? Let's just take all those pros and put them together and then just group on the cons. Just no big deal. Well, I don't think it is that hard to do that. Record keeping should be very, very simple. It really doesn't need to be so complicated. So what we have been working on for the past few years is this database, WORMed, which we think really alleviates a lot of the stress. And I'm super happy to introduce it to you. So WORMed is meant, its slogan is it's meant to be an out-of-the-box simple database or simple record-keeping system for rehabbers. No extra steps involved, basically. So I'm super happy to share this with you. I'll quickly go through some slides of how it works and show you some other things, but then I'll spend some time basically demoing it to you if you'd like. One of the first things, of course, everybody has to accession in their animals or create records for the animals. It's something we all have to do almost every day. So that whole process of creating a record should be as simple and as to the point as possible. There shouldn't be any extra steps to it. Just fill in a couple blanks, press submit, and you're done. The record's created, and that's exactly what this screen is about. You fill in the blanks. You tell the species, any of the rescue or contact information if you can get it. Hopefully all of it. The intake information, like where did that animal come from, why is it coming into you, what was it fed when it was caught by the person before. Press submit, and the record or records are created. You can of course view one case at a time, whether it's the rescue information or any kind of initial exam information, and you can scroll through those records as simple as it should be. But if you wanted to see multiple cases at a time and get a more broad picture of what you're looking at, you can do that as well and page through multiples. So one of the cool things about Wormed is that once you've got all these records in there, what you kind of really want to do is be able to search through them and see what you can find out about your records. So there are 5 distinct ways to search for records in Wormed. The majority of them are very, very simple. You just tell which case number you want to find, or what animal it is, or what species it is you're looking for. But if you wanted to do a search that's a little bit more complicated, like you wanted to find all of the red-tailed hawks whose admit weight was under 900 grams and they were released, and whatever search criteria you can come up with, you can very easily do that. And if you really wanted to, there's a way to come up with really, really complicated, crazy search queries if you really wanted to dig into your data. So out of the box, by default, Wormed actually gives you some very, very simple analytics. So it'll tell you how many cases you have in care at that moment, how many species you've gotten in per day, or how many mammals and birds and amphibians and reptiles you've gotten in per day over the year, or it'll give you an array of all the dispositions. So it gives you very, very simple answers to common questions out of the box. So of course, the 2 common questions that I often hear is, what does it take to actually to use Wormed? How do I get into it? Oh, by the way, raccoons are my favorite. And frankly, it only takes 3 things to actually use this database. It takes an account, obviously, and it takes a computer. Multiple computers are good too. And it takes access to the internet. This database is entirely web-based, which means you don't have to install it onto your servers anywhere. You don't have to take some CD and plug it in somewhere. It's web-based, so in theory, you could be anywhere in the world and log onto your account and update your records. So if you were here, you could access your databases.
You are here.
You are here. And I will caveat real quick and say that well, that seems like there could be security concerns because if it's accessed anywhere, I don't want people to be able to get into it. There is a lot of security protection built into it, and you can actually blacklist people or areas from getting into it. So you can make it so that only people from within your organization, or rather, from your center can access the database. So you can blog remote access, essentially. And then the other comment or question I hear or people share with me is that it seems like it's sort of intimidating. Our record keeping system is fine. Why go do anything like this? And I'd say that if your record keeping system is fine, then awesome, good for you. But I'm sure that everybody here can improve upon their record keeping in some way or another. My quick 30-second, oh, actually 1 second. My quick 10-second, yes?
I'm just curious how easily it is to gather your data up to line up with what Nicole and
Thank you for asking. So the year-end report, the bottom line, who cares about all the rest of it, just get to the year-end report. I will show you that. So what does it take, or well, it seems intimidating. Well, my 10-second sales pitch about this is if you only use the database for nothing else, but just to create the records in there and put in the final disposition, your year-end report will be minutes instead of weeks or months or however long it takes. So all the other fields, you don't have to use them, but of course the more you put in, the more you can get out. And any benefit of using this database or any database really could far outweigh any drawbacks. So I have a quick case study to share with you. As Shannon mentioned, one of the places that I work is at Lindsay Wildlife Museum. Excuse me. At Lindsay Wildlife Museum, they have been collecting digital records or records in a database since 1991 for quite a while. That database, as you know, started out as a very, 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 very slim database. It basically had 4 fields for the species, the initial exam, the disposition, and maybe the admit weight, who knows. But it was very, very slim. But they started, putting them in. And over time, the database got more and more complicated and got lots of, fun features to it. Well, fast forward until now, until November 1st of this year, To date, they have over 130,000 records in the computer. And the extent to that is unbelievable. You can look back literally 20 or more years of your rehab history to find out how many house finches you've gotten over all those years. You know, how progressively have they done. It's just, I can't share with you the benefits of having that much records so easily, almost literally at a click of a button. So if you only started just by putting in the disposition and the species, imagine yourself. Actually, the next slide. There's no reason that that can't be you or anybody else. And as been, you know, over the past year or so, we've been hearing a lot about healthcare and, you know, all this and that. People, we don't even have a database for us, but you could. So, you know, what are the bottom lines that I'm really trying to do with forums? The bottom line is that I want to make it super easy for rehabbers to put in data, to be able to search that data, and be able to benefit from it. Of course, as I mentioned before, I want to help improve the professional stature of rehab. And then one of my long-term goals, a couple years from now, is once there's tons and tons of data in this, there's no reason that we couldn't then work together to find, you know, commonalities in our patients, between our centers, and commonalities in how we treat certain conditions. So we can aggregate that collectively with our collective experiences and, you know, work together. Hey, imagine that. And before I do anything else, I need to acknowledge a few different centers that have been the brave ones to jump in first. So thank you all to them. Crow is a place in Florida that I work with. Bird Alley X in the back. Lindsay Wildlife Museum. Yay. Pacific Wildlife Care and Santa Rosa Bird Rescue. So can I show it to you? Would you like to see it? Yes. Okay, just shut up and get to it. All right, so as I mentioned, it's entirely web-based, so I am online and hopefully the internet will stay connected. The URL, if you're interested, is wrmd.org. And you're all welcome to go to it, and actually on the bottom of this homepage down here, there is information about how to log in on like a trial dummy account, so you can log in and play with this. And I go ahead and log in on the top right. And make this full screen. Okay, so when I first log in, I'm just brought to a dashboard page, which is like a landing page. And it just gives me some very simple, generic information to help me get going. One thing I should mention is I could spend hours and hours up here doing this. So if you have a question, for the next half hour or whatever it is the time to ask, because I may forget you. You were first.
Yeah, some centers don't have internet access.
That's exactly
Yes.
what I was thinking. Yeah.
Right, so I wish that I could give you a magic bean to help you with that. There are... Oh yeah, I'm sorry. So the question was, or the statement was that some centers don't have internet access. And I would love to give you, a way to solve that problem. I do believe within here there is one way that you can get around that. But I wish that internet was available to all of us. Yes, Rachel.
One of the possibilities that could happen is that if there was a paper form that you have. You're going to talk about that?
Yeah, so I will have that. And you had a question.
I had two questions. The first one is, did you have backup forms that you could use?
Yes.
That would be set up for inputting? And the second question is, everybody's in the same database, or are there separate databases for each organization?
So did everybody hear that? Yes, no. Okay, well the question was, are there paper forms equivalent to what's going on in here? And thanks to Pacific Wildlife Care, as of 24 hours ago, the answer is yes. And then the second question is everybody's data into the same database? Every center is a separate account, so you do not see records from another account from another center. It's entirely private to your own. Does that answer your question?
Sort of. I can talk later.
Okay. Yes.
How much does it cost?
So right now on the homepage it says there is a cost. There is no cost. I'm offering this to everybody for free. One more time. One second. The reason is because in my research I've discovered that rehabbers don't have money. But no, okay, so I will quickly say that I am so happy to do this for you, but what I ask in return is if you know somebody or some entity that can help me, because this costs me money, and don't tell Rachel. Okay, one last question, then I'm going to go through some more. Yes?
If you've got multiple people from one organization accessing at the same time, is there a way for us to know somebody else is updating a record so that when you're putting in new
Yes.
animals, you don't...
So the question is, right, the question is if you have multiple staff persons or volunteers at your center accessing the database and making changes, can you know who's doing what? Sorry, the answer is yes. You can have as many users as you want in your account, and there are things you can set up where it'll actually log who does what. So I said by default, this is a very, very simple and lean database out of the box, but all these fancier things are basically extensions that you can turn on. Okay, so the way the database is organized, real quickly, across the top, these navigation links are basically to get into the main areas where you would input data. So if you wanted to update the rescuer's information or any initial care information or continued care information, you would go there. And then across the left, they're all basically quick links from one version or another. So I guess first of all, I can show you how to create a new record. So on the left under quick links is new record. And on this screen, all we really need to do is fill in the blanks. So the first thing we do, of course, is identify what the species is. And we can do that one of two ways. We can either just start typing in, if it was a house finch, for example, finch, whoops, finch. And it starts to generate a list of what it's predicting that I'm going to be typing. So I can just click on that and go. If I didn't know what the species was or how it was spelled, or if I couldn't find it, I can click on this link and it'll give me basically all the species that are in the database. So if we got in, let's see, an albatross, I can just click on that and it drops it in. And then we want to say how many patients there are. So if somebody brought in a clutch of albatrosses, is it albatrosses or albatrossi? If somebody brought in a clutch of them, if there was 5 of them in the group, then we would just say 5. And when we want to press submit, it'll create all 5 records. The rescuer contact information, none of the fields are required, basically because sometimes we don't know any of this, or we don't know what we will know. But basically, in an ideal world, you would fill in as much here as you possibly could. So for the name, we'll just say control. And then just save time, I'm not going to fill in the rest. And then the intake information, so where did it come from? And the date found, observations, these albatross fell from the tree. And then what were they fed? Fish. French fries, yes. Now, from this point, I can either create these records and then continue creating more records if this was being done at like an accession desk where this is the point of the desk. Or if I wanted to, I could create these records and then go right to them and start editing them and putting the content in on them. I guess I'll say edit this record. So I'd say create these records. And now those 5 albatrosses, they're in. And it's brought me to the initial care screen. I'll back up one step to show you on the rescuer screen. Well, first of all, you can see that I'm on record number 91, which was the first of the 5 albatrosses that came in. and it has the species across the top. On the rescuer screen, it has the exact same rescue information that I already put in. And on the bottom, the database knows who this rescuer is, and it will tell me how many animals this person has brought in. So if this person is a repeat offender, you'll get a list. So under initial care,
Can I ask one question?
yes, please.
So oftentimes something comes in and you can't identify it because it's so young. And you
Right.
figure it out a couple weeks later. Can you change the species?
Of course. So on the top, there's a link here that says change species, admit date. If I click on that, see, it's exciting when you can do simple things, right?
You can pay me later for that.
Yeah, sure. So under initial care, the intake information here is the exact same stuff we typed in before. And then all this information here is for initial exam and treatment. There are, these boxes on the top are sort of the common things to fill in, like the admit, weight, the age, the BMI. And then there are lines for basically different body parts. So if you do your exam and, this albatross's legs are hurt. Yes, question.
Is there must be some place where you can identify the individual albatross and divide, so if they have different conditions?
Right. Thank you for saying that. So this right here, what we're looking at, and this might answer your question, all of this medical information is for this individual, number 91. Now, if I were to click on next on the top right, that goes to number 92, which is the next albatross. And so I would put in his medical information.
And then it would be up to the band to somehow identify that, so they...
Yeah, well, I assume that if you got in, a number of animals and you want to keep them, if you wanted to know who's who, you would ban them anyway. But yeah, so the only shared information between these albatrosses, of course, is the one rescuer, but all the medical stuff is entirely their own. So anyway, initial exam, and then on the bottom there's disposition-related information. All of these dispositions, well, pretty much all of these dispositions are the dispositions that U.S. Fish and Wildlife asked for on the year-end report, with the exception of died in 24 hours and euthanized in 24 hours. I feel that it's actually really important for us as rehabbers to distinguish between died in 24 hours and died beyond 24 hours, because unfortunately, as we know, many of the animals don't survive beyond the first 24 hours. But of those animals that do, wouldn't it be nice to know how well they are doing? Those animals that are getting more extended rehab. Now, in the year-end report, those numbers are combined, so they just become died, basically. Excuse me. And there are, on the year-end report, one of the things they asked for is, for all the animals that were transferred, what was their reason for being transferred? So you would just select here on the reason. Disposition date, the location, the state, all sorts of information. Like I said, I could spend hours going over all of this, but I want to kind of get through this sort of quickly. Afterwards, if you have questions for me, I'll be here until the end of Sunday, so you can find me. So this is all initial care information, which, as we know, some of the animals won't survive beyond the first 24 hours, so you'll fill in this information for them, and then that will unfortunately be the end of that for them. But for those animals that do continue in their care and keep going on, there's continued care. And under continued care is a place to put things in to help further identify those animals as an individual. Like you were saying, where you could put in a band number, so you could type it in there. Medical record. This is actually going to be changing in the next, well, by January when I can get to it. But basically, the medical record is a place to keep that log, that long history of what's really going on with that animal. When you do its rechecks or you do its exams every day or every other day, you fill in information, press submit, and it'll keep that log in there. You can also create rechecks. So if you wanted to, be notified that this animal needs to be looked at for, to have its ambulations checked for its hurt leg, you can put in a recheck in there and put the recheck date. And there are recheck types, so you can assign the recheck to a certain kind of person at your center. And then on the bottom is all the exact same disposition fields just on this screen. So basically, for the most part, that's it. That's all you really need to fill in. Question, yes?
So that you don't have a separate place for medications, they go
Well,
in the continuum?
That's a perfectly timed question. Well done. I'll pay you later. Or you pay me later. So, yeah, so
What
for
was the question?
I'm sorry, so the question was, she said there's not a separate place to keep like medications. And I'll extend that question by saying, well, there's not really a place to keep, lab values, or if you send your patients to home care, there's, you'd like to be able to record who and, what volunteer has an animal that took it to home care, and, that sort of information. So, as I said, out of the box, this is meant to be very, very slim and simple so that all rehabbers can benefit from it. But if you wanted to be able to keep more detailed information, on the top right, there's a link for settings. I still need to answer your question. And there are many settings, but I'll jump right ahead. Hello. I'll jump down to under extension settings. And I've built a number of extensions that basically add on extra features into this. So, for example, if you were asking about prescription related stuff. So if I wanted to keep prescriptions, I could just activate this extension. And this is something you would probably just do once for your center and be done with it, because once it's activated, it's always activated.
Yeah, feeding.
I'm sorry?
Do you have a feeding column?
There is one for, where is it? Oh, maybe I was actually still working on it, but there is one for like husband-related information. It's not in here at the moment. I just need to finish it, but the short answer is yes. The other thing I'll say, I am totally open to making changes. This entire database is not, Devin's database. Come use his cool database. This is supposed to be a community database. So if we, think that there's something missing or something, something that needs to be changed, I'm very, very open to that. Okay, so prescriptions. So I clicked on activate prescriptions, and now there's a link on top that says prescriptions. So now I can, now that I'm in here, I can click on the little pop-up button, and I can say this is 1 mil of, what is it, 100 micromole cephalexin. I'll put in my prescription, pick whatever the start date is, and if I know the end date, I can put that in, or if it's an open prescription, I can leave it blank, press submit, and now the prescription has been recorded. And one little piece in there that I want to do in the next couple days is to be able to print this prescription so that you can hand it to somebody or attach it to the sheet or however you keep your prescriptions. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Good. So since we're talking about extensions, I'll continue with this real briefly. So there's if you wanted a place just to keep necropsy information, there's something for that. Or for lab information, you can do that as well. Home care. And not all of these extensions, basically, they don't all give you places to put more data. Some of them are meant to be helpful tools to you. Like, I always get annoyed that I can never find a calculator when I need one. So I made a calculator extension. So I'll turn that on and show you that in a second. And since we're here, you had asked about paper forms, and so you all pay attention. I don't want to force anybody to have to keep their data on the computer and have to go to the computer every time they want to make a change. If you do your stuff on paper, that's fine, because, as I said, there are pros to using papers. You can get to it fairly quickly. So you can activate this paper forms extension, and I'll show you that one in a quick second. What else? Oh, okay, so the sidebar shortcuts, that's my little favorite one. Okay, so now if I go back to any of these screens where there's data going on, the calculators I mentioned are on the bottom left here. So if you just click on this one, it pops up and gives you just a normal calculator, so you don't have to walk around looking for one anywhere. And then I thought, well, that'd be cool, so why can't we have a kcal calculator? So you just put in your... It tells you how many kcals. And there's been a good suggestion to make a prescription calculator, and I think we should have a fluid calculator, just because it'd be fun, right? Okay, and then on these shortcuts, which I also turned on, well, I'll show you printing records in a second, but if you wanted just to really quickly just print out this record, you can just click on that link and it will produce a PDF of your record. Sorry about that. Here. Or how many times when your animal is ready to be released, you got to figure out, okay, how do I get to that place where that animal came from? Actually, hold on, this may not work on this record, this bogus albatross. Well, it might. Okay, so if I click on directions to address found, it takes me to Google and gives me directions. Although this address doesn't actually exist, so it didn't work. But okay, so to answer the paper records form, when I turned that on, it did a couple things. On the top, it added these two links. So if I wanted to produce like an intake form, which basically has all the same fields that are on this screen and a few others, I can just click on that and it will generate a PDF. Hello. It's not. I'm sorry, I should blow it up for you. No, you can't really see that, can you? Well, you may not be able to read it, but it has all the same fields that were on the intake form. And yes, it does look just like yours. Yes?
Just a quick question. Once you activate those extensions, do they stay on there indefinitely or each time you sign on?
No, they're on indefinitely.
Okay, awesome.
I don't know where that noise is coming from. And so there's also a treatment log form, which is basically a generic form with just places to write in what's going on. Yes? Question? I'm sorry, yes.
One of the things I like to track is donations. Do you have that?
Well, I have two answers to that question. I'll show you. So so the question was, she wants to be able to track donations, and I can answer it, although, well, there's two answers, and I'll go over those answers.
And it's on.
Where was
Devin?
I? Yes.
Where did this cord go to?
Nowhere. It's not my cord.
It sounds like somebody else has an active mic on,
Yeah.
maybe they're wearing it and they don't realize it's on or something.
Can you please be quiet? Okay, so real quickly, well, okay, I'll do this one. I'll do. Sorry? I'll answer your donate form question, and then you had somebody back there had a question about what was it? Oh, tracking who's doing what and all that sort of things. Like I said, I could be on here forever doing this, so I'm trying to go quickly. One of the extensions, when I go through here, all of these fields are, to me, the most basic and standard fields. But suppose there is some field or some piece of data that you really, really want to record, but there's no place in here that's really ideal for that, like whether the rescuer made a donation or not. So at this moment, there is no donation checkbox or donation amount to record. So if I went under install extensions, there's a custom fields. So if I activated that, and then on the left now there's a link that says manage custom fields. Well, look at that, I did it already. So under the rescue information, there's one called made a donation ? And it's actually, it's a drop down, so it's yes or no. So why don't I also then, I'll say, donation amount. And we'll make sure that it's a number. Let's say add. So now if I go onto the rescuer screen, there's the first one that was there, made a donation, yes or no, and then donation amount, and I can just type in the number. So that is the simple answer to your question. I will share with you one of my ideas, but it's very, very, very gray at this point, so don't get optimistic yet. I think besides so the rescuer generic rescue information is cool and it's good enough. But we should be able, to store like, if they made a donation, are they a member, are they a volunteer, other ways to track them. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, this is online, so why can't we just take credit card donations right there? But there's a lot of legal issues with that, so don't get too optimistic yet. So that's the long answer to the question. Okay, so now you asked about, yes, ma'am.
Is there a way to get, one of the things we like to do is take all of the finders who bring us animals and have their addresses so that then we can send them something for a fundraiser.
Well, one thing you can do, all the data in here is exportable. So you can export out that information and then do with it as you wish. One thing that I've been intending on putting into this at some future point when I have less to do, I guess, is to basically put that feature into this as a kind of a default, or not a default, but as something that's built in. But the short answer is yes. You can. She was asking, being able to contact your rescuers and thank them. You can export the information. Yes.
Yeah, it's really easy to accept credit card payments if you have a PayPal account.
Yes.
And so if you can link to PayPal, log in your PayPal account, you can accept
Yeah. Right. Now I do a lot of e-commerce websites. So if we do this, it probably will be through PayPal because it separates it from the database and it is very easy. Yes. You don't have to worry about merchant account IDs and all that stuff. Behind you, yes.
If we were interested in implementing this at my center, I'd want to really thoroughly understand the database. So I'm wondering, do you offer more in-depth training on your database, or is there a training built in?
Thank you for asking. So on the top, well, actually down the bottom of the screen is a link to support. And I will add in more, including the reason we're videoing this, because this will be on here. There are videos of how to do certain things, like how to create a record or how to update a record. So you watch that video. It's basically you're watching me do it. But because I'm still excited about this, and well, I'll always be excited, but because I'm still trying to gather some momentum, at this point I am willing to go and spend some time with you and show you. Although this gets into the problem of me spending a lot of money doing this. One thing that I can't show you because I only have one computer here is if somebody was logged in on your account and they were making changes on a screen, and somebody in a different room or somewhere else in the center was logged on, and they were going to make changes on that same record. On the top up here where this big empty space is basically somewhere where warnings or messages appear. So it would show up there and say, hey, so-and-so is currently editing this record. Are you sure you want to keep doing what you're doing? Now that's one way to answer your question. The other thing that I built in here, which is, well, everybody goes ooh, ah, so you will too. There is an extension called version control. So if I turn that one on, the way it works, let's go to rescue. So now you can see on the top there's a little link that says versions. So if I come in here and I make some changes, I'll put in an address for Rachel Avila. We'll say 123 Main Street. Mud Creek. So anyway, so I make my changes and I put it in. And now that I've pressed submit, version control basically memorized what I've just done. So if I wanted, I could click on versions. Click on versions. And it's keeping a log of what just happened, and it knows who I am because I'm logged in. It knows what time it is, so it timestamps it. And if I can click on this, and it will basically show me what were all the values at that moment. 1 second. So that that's cool. But now I come in here and I realize, oh, this wasn't correct. It's not 123 Main Street. It's 12345 Main Street. And I'll give Rachel a number. So you do your daily things, and this is not just for rescuers. It's on the initial care and continue all the areas. So you make your changes as you normally would. and you press update. And on versions, I can go to that one as well, and that's what those values were. Or I can go back to the previous one and see what those values were. But that's neat, but this is just, this is simple data. But if it was like a long medical record, I made a bunch of changes. If I wanted to see what actually changed between those, I can click compare to previous version. And it'll highlight exactly what changed. So that may be the answer you're looking for.
Well, mostly for us, we were using a database in Dropbox, and we had different groups work out of our homes.
Okay.
So we'd get two people that would go in and pull the file out and get new numbers for new intake pages.
Yes.
But if you're both doing it at the same time, then you both have the same numbers for different animals.
That's right.
And you get a conflict when you save them, and then you have to start all over again.
Yeah.
So that's what I was trying to figure out, if there was some way that you would know that, or when each person hits that update and pulls a number, even if two people are working, it's just whoever gets that number first.
Right. Well, yeah. So when you're creating a new record, if I'm creating a new record here and you're creating a new record over there, whoever basically pushes submit first gets the next numeric number, but then I would get the next. So it goes in numeric sequentially.
Which would be wonderful.
Whoa. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Just a couple of questions. I know you were up at Bird Rescue Center just the other day.
Yes.
But on some of these, so you could sit there like doing an intake exam, have a tablet, and just fill out this information right when you're going through the actual exam.
Yeah, if you're really cool, you can have an iPad and fill it all in right there. Yeah.
And the other thing, on the finder information, we've got another one of our mini forms, to capture all that information we need for release and reunites. That's really quick. Can you expand, or do you just have open fields to get that information?
But say it one more time. I'm not sure I understand.
As an example, we have a field rescue form that has to be filled out for every raptor that comes in.
Okay.
We use it for the reunites. So there's a lot of information. Would that go in like in free form under the finder in this particular form, or is there ways to expand this?
Well, you could. So under rescuer, the simplest way is under notes, which is just like a generic place to put stuff in. Or as I made these donation fields, you could add in custom fields that suit your needs.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
If you have two organizations that are both using your database, and organization A wants to transfer bird to organization B.
What a good question. At this very moment, no. I started doing that and didn't finish it just because I needed to work on more important things within it. But the short answer is yeah. So like if suppose there were 3 centers in the Santa Rosa area. There are 3 centers. Hey. And one of them, well, 1 or 2 or all of them were using the database, and they wanted us to transfer the animal. And instead of having to print out the record and then hand it to the next person, if they could type it all in, yeah, you should be able to, push a button that, says, give this record to that person, or just copy it over. So it doesn't exist, but I started working on it, and I needed to finish some other things. But the short answer is yes, it's possible. Yes.
So I'm understanding that each center would be able to access all of their own information.
Right. You never see another center's information.
Right. But is there kind of like some higher place where all the information is pulled into?
Yeah. So
let's just say like there was a huge rabies outbreak or something, and then they could track it throughout the state. Is that something?
Yeah. So in the back end, and maybe this kind of gets more to what you were asking, all of this data is in one database, but it's coded in multiple ways so that you can only see your information. So yes, because all of it is all in one place, and this is what I was mentioning earlier. It makes it so that we as a group, we can look through at the big picture, and look for rabies outbreaks or common trends between centers or common treatment behaviors or practices that we're doing, and discover that we're all using the same formula to feed fawns or whatever. So the short answer is yes, it's very possible. Did that answer your question?
But that wouldn't be currently what would be happening. That would be something that would be happening later on in the future that you could pull up and like find track of.
Sorry. Well, if there are any state representatives in the room, I'd like to talk to you. I guess I'm done.